Hey guys, this is IXRollOutIX reimagining some LEGO creations from my childhood. So let's start this off with a little bit of a history lesson. Way back when I was little, I'd go to my grandparents' house a lot, and not having much to do there, one day my grandma took me to the Goodwill, and she got me a little baggie of Lego. Now, most of those parts were from a Crash 'Em Racer set, an ice-themed set with lots of blues and oranges and translucent parts, and that was all I had when I was over at their place. There were very limited parts, and I kind of just had to let my imagination go wild and create things that I normally wouldn't create, just to kind of have fun while there was, well, basically nothing else to do. So among those parts, I created some very interesting things, but one thing stuck out among all of them, and that was this little robot here. Now, it's a little abstract, and again, this is a young child's imagination going wild here, but I called this guy Alpha. I just thought that name was cool. He was a little robot named Alpha, and he would fight other larger robots in tournaments. It was basically kind of a same or similar idea to something like Metabots. However, I think I came up with this a little before Metabots. Either way, it had some influence, but I really didn't think about any of those when I was playing around. I was just having fun, basically. So this little guy, again, mostly made out of those blues and oranges and translucent pieces. His head is a little diamond here. His hands are these crystals, and he has these weird domes in the back here, which I saw kind of his arms as, like, jet arms or something. He'd have rocket-powered punches and whatnot. Not a whole lot of movement, but he could do this. He could punch. The legs can move a little bit, and if I wanted one foot forward and the other back, which kind of had to be with the 2x2 plate there, I'd just bring the other forward and move the other one back. Simple as that. He was super simple, really easy to build, but a whole lot of fun. Now, with all of the other parts in the bags, I would build baddies for Alpha to take out, and this is something probably very similar to what I'd build back then. Basically a very spindly robot, not held together very well, something kind of improvised just for Alpha to fight, and of course he'd always take it down. Now, I was just starting to get into anime at the time. I was starting to stay up to watch Toonami, so I was very influenced by that as well. I liked the idea of kind of a weak hero overcoming the super powerful, bigger enemy. That was something, I thought was really awesome at the time. And like any good anime, I always thought he needed a super amazing special finishing attack that was uber powerful and over glorified. So in that baggie, there was a single vacuum metallized crystal piece here. And so what I do is replace one of his little crystal fists with this, and this would be his ultimate attack, his platinum punch, as I'd call it. And there'd be an elongated punching epicness going on here, and then he'd break this into pieces, and it was absolutely awesome. Back then, of course. Now it's, a little bit underwhelming, but it's the thought that counts. Either way, this was kind of a big part of my childhood, and definitely something I remember. Now, this being something very nostalgic and one of my earliest LEGO memories, I wanted to recreate it in kind of a modern style. So, this is what I came up with. First of all, they're very different for a couple reasons. I don't have very much of this light blue color, so I opted for the darker blue, and I also don't have a couple of the pieces, namely in the arms, in orange. But aside from that, basically I just wanted it to look a little more streamlined, have a bit more rounded edges, and kind of fully realize it as kind of an advanced little robot. So it's definitely got a lot of cues from the original Alpha design, but it's definitely an interpretation. I took some liberties here and there. But I used this little globe crystal ball piece as the head instead of the little diamond piece, basically because it's just a bit bigger, but it was actually kind of difficult to wedge that in there. I would show you how I did it, but if I took it out, it would take forever to get it back in. Basically, it uses kind of a 1x1 stud piece, and kind of plays against the tolerances, if that makes any sense. Again, I'd like these to be completely orange, but they do have a little bit of orange behind here. The arms look a little more like rockets, in my opinion, having this this dish piece there. It still has these little bits in the back, so that keeps true to that. And I also like how the torso has the 3 layers of color. Again, very true to the original. The legs that is one of the points where I took quite a few liberties. It is all blue, but there are, some T-joints in there to give it just a little bit of movement. There's not a whole lot of articulation. Alpha was always a little a stumpy robot, but basically now his legs can move forward and back. They can splay. They can rotate at the ankle and kind of tilt in. If I slide this up just a bit there. So, you have a bit more expression there. Also, you can rotate the waist. There's no movement in the head, obviously, but there doesn't really need to be. And then back here, you can see, again, the arms are on T-joints, so they rotate and go up and down. So not only can you kind of have him do some punching action, if we bring his arms out like this, you can have that going on, but you can also kind of rotate the arms and bring them up like this and get just a lot more expression out of it. Now, once again, he needs his ultimate attack, the Platinum Punch. So basically, it starts off exactly the same as the original. You pull this off and replace it with that. But I decided to go the extra mile and add this piece here, which goes onto the back, so it kind of looks like a super mega trail of rocket something or other. I don't know. Either way, it looks pretty cool in my opinion. You kind of splay the legs out there, rotate the waist, get him looking a bit more animated, and we'll bring in the original Alpha. And there they are together. Oh. There we go. So, as I got older, I stopped going to my grandparents' house as often, and eventually I wanted to bring Alpha and the rest of those pieces home and put them in my collection there. But during this time, I didn't really build with system all that much. I built a lot with Bionicle. I was going through a Technic phase. Now, if you asked me to build anything out of Bionicle parts now, I probably couldn't do it. I've lost my touch. But I wanted to make a rival for Alpha, the ultimate adversary. And I began sort of formulating a little bit more of a story to these characters. I decided that Alpha was kind of the first model that whoever created him had made and poured his heart and soul into it, but he had created like blueprints for an even more advanced robot, sort of based on the same design, I guess. And this was Beta. Now, as I said, I built with Technic back then, and I built him out of Technic parts. Now, I also wanted him to be very small, and I suppose I just didn't really know how to make something as small as Alpha out of Bionicle parts. So this is what I came up with way back when, and it's really abstract and kind of strange looking. I use these little tube sections here, this little chain link. Not a whole lot of movement, doesn't do a whole lot. The only like articulation here is the waist. But basically he'd like punch like this. Just as Alpha kind of had this action feature of punching, I'd kind of use his head here. This is sort of kind of like a swept back head or something. Anyway, I'd do this and he'd punch. Kind of silly, like a lot more silly than Alpha, but my imagination saw this guy being a lot cooler than he was, honestly. But he was all silver and I thought that was super cool. And again, he was like the prototype, unpainted prototype. Basically, the idea was that a big corporation had stolen those blueprints and created this and were using it against Alpha for whatever reason. I also did make little minifigures, so these were basically meant to be minifigure scale here, but I don't really remember what those guys looked like. Now I have made minifigures for each of these, and I'll kind of show those off in the last little segment. But yeah, this is Beta. He's supposed to be very, very fast. You know, he's a little more lanky, just light speed blur basically, and just more advanced than Beta in every single way. I was going through kind of a darker phase, sort of a learning development where I was like, the good guys don't always have to win, and so I'd basically have Alpha lose more often than not against this guy just because he was the ultimate challenge. Again, influenced by kind of the anime thing or whatever. So let's cut to the chase. I reimagined Beta as well, and this is what I came up with. So once again, a very similar thing to Alpha. It's obviously based off of this guy, but I took a lot of liberties. I completely scrapped the whole Technic idea because I work with system now. That's what I do, and I could kind of sculpt something a lot better this way. It still has the swept back head here, the thin little legs. I kind of made these chicken legs here so he goes fast now. So, you know, that makes a little more sense to me, having those kind of legs for speed. I don't know. He still kind of has the thin body that gets a little thicker up here, like the chain. The original Beta kind of had, like, holes in his hands, I guess sort of like cannons, but that's never what they were really meant to be. They were just like that because that was the piece I ended up using. They're always meant to be kind of like fists, and so I just made them normal, like cheese slopes there. But, you know, he's got quite a bit of articulation. The head rotates. These are on very similar joints to the arms on Alpha. I kind of wanted to make the two a little more similar than the originals were from each other because in my original envisionment, they were basically designed by the same person. So it didn't make much sense that they were so drastically different. But the waist here, like, rotates and then bends there. Has like a crunch, and the legs, they can move forward and back, in and out, and then you can kind of rotate these, so you can have the legs splayed, and then kind of rotate those little cheese slopes to get him in a solid position. So, yeah, once again, just an interpretation. I've been told that this guy here kind of looks like XLR8 from Ben 10, and I suppose that isn't too far off, but he's supposed to be fast, and again, he's all gray because he's, I guess, like a prototype, you know, an unpainted prototype, but oh well, there is that, and here are the two together. Get that out of the way. And that's really it. These upgraded models aren't spectacularly built, but they mean a lot to me, and they're definitely much better built, in my opinion, than my originals. I enjoy them a lot, and honestly, I highly recommend taking a walk down memory lane and revisiting some of your old creations, because it's super fun. So, as I said, I did make these little minifigures for them, kind of like I don't know, like the son of the CEO of the corporation that stole the design or something, and then the kid who, like, found Alpha in somewhere. I don't know. The story never really made a whole lot of sense. It was just kind of a catalyst for play. And really, that's what it should be, because Lego, they're toys. They're not really always meant to sit on the shelf and look pretty. You know, they're meant to be played with, and believe it or not, there was once a time where I too played with my Legos. Anyway, that is about it, guys, and this is IXRollOutIX, signing off.